Hi friends, welcome to another episode of the Mighty Emotions podcast. If you are just listening for the first time, my name is Giselle. I'm an emotional resilience coach, and my mission is to educate and empower high-functioning adults to understand their emotions so that they can have inner peace. On this episode, I'm talking all about connection, true connection, what it is, how do we achieve it, what's holding us back from achieving it, and I've really been thinking about this for quite some time. So I hope that the message was able to get through and that something resonates with you. And if it does, as always, please check the show notes for the link on how you can connect with me further. So without further ado, let's get into the episode. Welcome back to another episode of the Mighty Emotions podcast. I just want to say thank you so much to everyone who listens to this and who has shared their feedback with me about how you're finding the podcast. It really is, it's amazing to know that, I'm not just speaking into a void because it feels that way sometimes, but I'm also grateful that some of the things I share resonate with you. And so I hope that today's episode will be the same. I wanted to talk today about connection because it feels like we are in very disconnected times, very fragmented times, and there's a lot of ego at play and a lot of emotional dysregulation. And this podcast is all about our emotions and emotional resilience. And being emotionally resilient allows us to show up in our lives in an aligned way and to be aligned with our life. And that allows us to have true connection and true intimacy. And, just being completely transparent, I've struggled with connection and intimacy for most of my life. It wasn't until almost 7 years ago when I started my journey of healing and recovery that I realized even how disconnected from myself, from other people, like how little I knew about true connection. And this journey has shown me so much. And learning about emotional resilience and what it takes to be emotionally resilient has also taught me so much, right? And I wanted to talk a little bit about that perspective today. And just before we get into that, we got to talk about what connection is, right? And to me, there are levels of connection, and there's kind of the superficial level, and then you get deeper and deeper as you go, and each level is what we connect about, right? So this isn't going to be an episode about connecting with ourselves or with a higher power. This is more so a connection with other people, relationships, and intimacy. So if you're like me, and you've struggled with that, then I hope what I share today can help you, give you some perspective and guide you in a new direction. So what are the layers, the levels of connection? To me, there's like the first level, the top level is when we connect over events and circumstances. So if other people are going through similar circumstances as us, we tend to connect with them on that level. We tend to, feel somewhat connected to them because we're going through things together. But that level, like I say, it's superficial because there's no kind of sense of identity on that level. It's kind of a generic level, right? So you don't feel truly connected to people just because you're going through similar circumstances as them. And oftentimes I've found that I have very little connection to people, even though we may be experiencing the same circumstances or events, but other people, seem to connect on that level more than me. So it does differ from person to person. The next level of connection, deeper than that, are emotions and feelings. So when we connect with people who are feeling the same as us or who are sharing the same emotions as us, so maybe we're going through a similar event and we're feeling similarly about it, that kind of helps us bond and connect a little bit deeper because we feel a sense of this person sees me, this person understands me and what I'm going through. We're not just going through something and feeling differently about it. We're witnessing one another in our emotions. And then the deepest level of connection is when we connect on the subconscious belief and ideology level. And that is truly like the core of our experience, the core of who we are is built around our beliefs and our ideologies. So when we connect with people who share our beliefs, that is truly like we feel like these people see us, get us. We feel a strong tie to them, and then we struggle to kind of separate from them when, circumstances change or our beliefs differ in an area. We struggle because we felt so close to them, having shared similar beliefs or ideologies. So that to me is kind of the deepest level of connection. And all of these layers are all happening. They can all be taking place at the same time. You can have a few layers and at levels, sorry, I'm going to probably mess that up several times. You're going to have a few levels that you share with someone, and then with others, you might just have, the top level. It might be temporary. It might be ongoing, where you find you are always connecting about the same things with the same people. And so it looks different for everyone, but that's just a general idea about kind of the levels that we connect with people over. Now, all of that said, what I've learned is that isn't true connection. And why I say that isn't true connection, it is connection, but it's not true connection because it is, kind of just one side of the coin, if you will. The other side of the coin is that true connection has less to do with, sharing the same feelings, sharing the same ideas, sharing the same circumstances as someone, and more to do with being willing to give and receive on those levels. So what does that mean? It means that just because I may have different ideas than you doesn't mean that we're not able to connect. And that is the realization that I've really stepped into in the last year, is the realization that having different viewpoints isn't the point of disconnection. The point of disconnection is not being willing to give or receive with one another. So if I'm willing to share with you my viewpoint and you're willing to receive my viewpoint, you're willing to hold it, you're willing to respect it, even though it's different than yours, and vice versa, that is true connection. And so often we think that because someone is different from us, that we can't share, we can't give, we can't be willing to give because we also aren't willing to receive. We think that the difference means that we need to be disconnected and we need to be separate from them. And that is an illusion, right? True connection is just simply that we are willing to give and we are willing to receive. We are willing to share our feelings. We are willing to share our ideas. And we are also willing to receive when others share their ideas and share their beliefs and share their feelings with us. And when you're able to do that, it doesn't so much matter that the ideas and the beliefs and the feelings are the same. What matters is that you're willing to be intimate with one another by giving and receiving, by that two-way communication, right? And when I realized that, I realized just how little that's discussed and how little that's shared and how little that's talked about when I see things about connection, and how some of my friends have very different views to me and different feelings to me about things. But because we share it with one another and because we see the humanity in each other and we can hold that with each other, we are able to connect and we are able to have a beautiful relationship regardless of the differences. And so I really wanted to share that today. And I also want to get into why we struggle with that, right? So maybe you want to connect and you're afraid, right? Or you're sad, or you're anxious, or you're angry. the reason that we're struggling is because of this dysregulation. The reason that we struggle to connect is because, or the reason, not even that we struggle to connect, because we can often connect, like I said, on the superficial levels, and we connect when we feel the same way as other people. But the reason that we struggle with that give and receive when there's a difference is because of that emotional dysregulation that we experience, right? So what are the emotions that are coming up when you see someone that looks different from you, sounds different from you, has a different viewpoint to you? Are you afraid? Right? Is fear coming up for you? Is anger coming up for you? Is disgust coming up for you? Right? What are those emotions that are showing up? And how can you do the work with those emotions to understand what they're trying to show you about where you are in your life and within yourself, right? Because when we are experiencing emotional dysregulation, it's showing us that we're not in alignment with ourselves. And if we're not in alignment with ourselves, then we're not going to be able to give and receive. We're not going to be able to connect. We're not going to be able to be vulnerable and intimate with other people. And for me, my life was a constant state of emotional dysregulation, and I was always emotionally it was turbulent, it was chaos, and I was always just trying to feel safe, and I couldn't feel safe with others because of that dysregulation, right? And when I learned how to work with my emotions and understand what they had to show me, and understand that they're here to serve me, then I was able to come into alignment with myself so that I can show up in those relationships. This doesn't mean that we don't ask for what we need. This means that we definitely get clear on what we need so that we can ask for it, right? Because oftentimes when we're coming from a place of ego, what we think we need isn't actually what our emotions are trying to get us to see is missing, or see what the underlying need is that we need to address. So when we can get into a state of alignment within ourselves, then we have so much clarity and how we can show up in our relationships, and we have so much clarity around, what we need from others, and we have the ability to hold space and receive, what others need from us. And when we don't do this work and we're in a state of dysregulation, we can't be present, we can't connect, whether it's on a level, a superficial level or otherwise. We aren't able to have true connection because we're so fragmented within ourselves, right? I hope that makes sense. I see so much fighting and so much turbulence going on, and it's not that people are aware necessarily of their egos being at play, right? They're not aware necessarily that all this conflict is coming from a place of dysregulation, right? If we want to be able to connect with others, and maybe we don't want to, and that's okay too, right? But if we want to be able to connect with others, we need to kind of understand what true connection is and what it looks like. And we need to be aware and be paying attention of how we're feeling emotionally when we're engaging with other people, whether, we feel like they are a danger to us, whether we feel like we need to perform, wearing masks. I was watching an Instagram live the other day about this and authenticity and wearing masks. And the reality is that wearing a mask is an attempt to regulate how we feel, right? Wearing a mask and performing and pretending that we're somewhere that we're not, or people pleasing, all of those tools are things that we use to try and regulate our emotions. But when we are practicing emotional resilience, we don't need those things, right? Because we're able to see what's coming up for us as something that is trying to serve us. We're able to work with that, honor that, listen to that, and then take aligned action so that we are back into alignment with who we are and we can show up authentically and genuinely, right? And even if the other person on the other end isn't able to do that, the beauty of this work is that we're able to see that they're coming from a state of dysregulation. Because another aspect to this is that oftentimes we see other people being combative with us, and we misinterpret what that's about, and we take that personally, or we think that something's wrong with them. And when we do this work and we get intimate with our emotions, we're able to see the dysregulation in others. We're able to see that they're struggling right now, right? We're able to have compassion for them. We're able to see that, the way they're acting, not only does it not have anything to do with us, but it's a self-made prison that they're in, and we can have compassion for that, right? We don't need to go and try to change them or fix them or anything like that, but just being able to see that how they're responding to us is a testament to how they are able to respond to how they're feeling. And that a lot of the things that we do, like being aggressive or passive aggressive or wearing masks, like I said, or people pleasing, we can recognize that as states of dysregulation. We can recognize that they're struggling, and we can try to be a little bit tender with them, right? And we can see if there's anything coming up for us and what that means. Are they triggering us with their behavior? Do we feel like we're not safe? Do we need to set firmer boundaries? Are they violating our boundaries? Because being in a state of emotional dysregulation doesn't give anyone a hall pass to violate another person's boundaries, right? So it's just a matter of what is our level of awareness, and recognizing that we're not going to be able to connect with them because they're not in a place of being able to connect. And that's why this work is so important to me, because the more of us that are able to recognize our dysregulation, do the emotional resilience practices to come back into a state of alignment, the more of us that operate from a state of alignment, the more of us that are able to connect, the more beautiful our world becomes, right? And diversity doesn't have to be a wall. It doesn't have to be a barricade to connection, right? Because we're different doesn't mean that we're not able to connect. Are we willing to give? Are we willing to receive? Are we willing to share? And are we willing to hold space when others share with us? That is true connection, right? And to say, okay, that's your perspective, and that's okay, right? And to say, I feel safe enough to share my perspective because I know I'm coming from a place of being in alignment with who I am. And I don't need to, do any of the things I used to do to try and feel safe, because I am safe, right? So I hope that something I shared here today has shifted your perspective on connection a little bit. If anything I've shared with you resonated, please message me on my Instagram, mighty_emotions. Link will be in the show notes. I would really, really love to hear your thoughts on this, because it blew my mind when I realized that I had been looking at connection all wrong, and I had been stopping myself from being able to connect, but also giving myself compassion and grace for the fact that for so long I was just so dysregulated, and I didn't know how to soothe myself and how to self-soothe. And now with this practice, I know that I can not only self-soothe, but that I can respond to my emotions. And when I do so, it just makes it more and more possible for me to connect with others. So I hope that it can be the same for you. I hope that if you're struggling with the masks or the people pleasing or any of these things, that you can have compassion for yourself and understand that dysregulation doesn't have to be a lifelong thing, that we will go through periods where we're dysregulated and where we're regulated, and it's up and down, as life is up and down, and it's a flowing process. But when we know how to move through it and how to navigate it, it allows us to show up in our world in a way that makes true connection and intimacy possible. So if you're someone that wants to be able to connect with people and you don't know how, I hope that something I shared today has kind of steered you in a new direction towards being able to connect with others. And if you're someone that's struggling with, other people in your life, feeling like you're trying to connect with them and they're not, meeting you where you're at, to have compassion and see that they're struggling as well with their emotions, right? And to just give them grace, give yourself grace. And I hope that you take something from this episode. I hope that you are well, safe, that your needs are met. And I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.